The gunshot that shattered the silence of the abandoned cabin also marked the beginning of Rose Calloway's labor pains. It was 1878, and the Montana Territory had little mercy for a woman alone in the wilderness, especially one heavy with child and no husband in sight. Rose gripped the rough-hewn table as another contraction seized her body. The bounty hunters who'd been tracking her for 3 days had finally found her hideout. The bullet had splintered the cabin's only window, sending glass cascading across the dirt floor. "Come out, Miss Calloway," a gruff voice called. "There's a pretty penny waiting for whoever brings you back to Silverton." Rose bit down on her lip to keep from crying out as another pain rippled through her abdomen. She'd fled Silverton 3 months ago when her pregnancy began to show. The father, a wealthy mine owner's son who'd promised marriage, had disappeared the moment she told him about the baby. His family had made it clear Rose was nothing but a saloon girl who'd tried to trap their precious heir with a bastard child. The next contraction came harder, forcing Rose to her knees. There was no time to run, no place to hide. Her baby was coming, bounty hunters or not. "Break down the door," the man outside ordered. Rose crawled toward the small bedroom, dragging herself onto the threadbare mattress just as her water broke. The sound of splintering would told her the front door wouldn't hold much longer. Then came an unexpected sound, more gunfire, but not aimed at the cabin. Shouts and curses filled the air outside, followed by the thundering of hooves. "Get out of here. This ain't your business," someone yelled. A deeper voice responded, "When you hunt a woman alone, you make it my business." More shots rang out, and Rose heard horses galloping away. The confrontation had bought her precious minutes, but her body wouldn't wait. The baby was coming now. She bit down on a folded piece of cloth as she pushed, determined not to scream. Sweat poured down her face, her auburn hair plastered to her skin as she labored alone in the dimming light of dusk. After what seemed like hours of excruciating pain, Rose gave one final push, and a tiny cry filled the cabin. A girl. A beautiful, perfect little girl with wisps of dark hair and lungs that worked just fine. With trembling hands, Rose cleaned her daughter using water from the pitcher beside the bed, then tore strips from her petticoat to swaddle the infant. She was still marveling at the tiny fingers and perfect face when the cabin door creaked open. Rose clutched her newborn to her chest, ready to fight to the death if necessary. A tall figure filled the doorway, silhouetted against the setting sun. The man removed his hat, revealing sandy brown hair and a face weathered by years under the sun. "Madam," he said softly, "name's Hunter Walsh. I heard there might be someone in need of assistance out here." Rose stared at him suspiciously, noting the gun holstered at his hip and the blood spattering his duster. "Those men won't be bothering you tonight," he added, keeping his distance. "Are you? Is that a baby?" Rose nodded weakly. "Just born. My daughter." Hunter's eyes widened. "You delivered alone? With those jackals outside?" "Didn't have much choice," Rose whispered, her strength fading fast. The tall cowboy stepped into the cabin, removing his duster and hanging it by the door. "You need a doctor, madam. Both of you do." "Can't go back to town," Rose murmured, her vision blurring. "They'll take her from me. Call me filthy. Ruined." Hunter knelt beside the bed, keeping a respectful distance. "Then you did it braver than most, madam. I've seen grown men cry over less pain than bringing a child into this world." His voice was gentle but firm. "But you need help, and your little one does too. I've got a wagon outside. My sister's place is half a day's ride from here. She's good with babies." Rose wanted to refuse, to send this stranger away, but exhaustion and blood loss were taking their toll. As unconsciousness claimed her, the last thing she saw was Hunter Walsh carefully lifting her daughter, his large hands impossibly gentle with the tiny bundle. "Stay with me, madam," he urged, his voice fading as darkness took her. "You fought too hard to give up now." When Rose woke, the familiar smell of wood smoke and coffee filled her nostrils. For a moment, she thought she was back in her father's house before everything had gone wrong. Then the soreness in her body reminded her of what had happened. She bolted upright, panic seizing her heart. "My baby." "Shoo, she's right here," came a woman's voice. Sleeping like an angel. Rose turned to see a pleasant-faced woman in her 30s sitting in a rocking chair near the bed, holding a small bundle. The woman had the same sandy hair as Hunter, though hers was pulled back in a practical bun. I'm Hannah Walsh, the woman said. Hunter's sister. He brought you to my place 3 days ago, half dead from blood loss and fever. 3 days? Rose whispered, horrified. Hannah nodded, rising to bring the swaddled infant to Rose. You've been fighting a fierce fever. But this little one has been thriving. Strong lungs on her. Rose took her daughter with trembling hands, tears filling her eyes as she counted 10 perfect fingers and toes. She's all right. Perfect as can be, Hannah confirmed. You did well, even with no help. Where is, Rose began. My brother? Out in the barn. He's been pacing like a caged wolf since he brought you here. Hannah smiled. Never seen him so worried over a stranger before. Rose looked down at her daughter's sleeping face. He saved us. That he did, Hannah agreed. And he's been riding between here and town these past days, making sure those bounty hunters didn't follow your trail. Rose felt a fresh wave of fear. Did he ask why they were after me? Hannah's expression softened. Hunter doesn't pry into other folks' business. Neither do I. She paused. But if you're running from something, you should know you're safe here for now. Our place is remote enough that folks don't come calling without reason. The door opened then, and Hunter Walsh stepped inside, removing his hat when he saw Rose was awake. He'd shaved since she'd last seen him, and without the blood and trail dust, she could see he was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 30 or so, with clear blue eyes that reminded her of Montana skies. You're awake, he said simply, relief evident in his voice. Thanks to you, Rose replied. Hunter shook his head. Just did what anyone would. No, Rose said firmly. Not anyone. An uncomfortable silence fell until Hannah cleared her throat. I'll fix some broth. You must be starving after 3 days of sleep. After Hannah left, Hunter remained by the door, turning his hat in his hands. Thank you, Rose said again. For my daughter's life. And mine. What's her name? Hunter asked, nodding toward the baby. Rose looked down at the sleeping infant. She hadn't had time to think of a name, between running and surviving. I haven't decided yet. Well, she needs something to be called, Hunter said pragmatically. Can't just say the baby forever. Despite everything, Rose smiled. No, I suppose not. Hunter stepped closer, peering down at the child. She's mighty small. But strong, Rose added. Like hope in dark times. Hope, Hunter repeated. That's a fine name. Rose looked up at him, then back at her daughter. Hope, she whispered. Yes, I think that suits her. Over the next week, Rose regained her strength under Hannah's careful nursing. The Walsh homestead was modest but well-maintained, with a main house, barn, and a small bunkhouse where Hunter slept to give Rose and baby Hope privacy in the main house. Hannah, Rose learned, was a widow. Her husband had died in a mining accident 2 years earlier, leaving her the small cattle operation. Hunter had come to help his sister and never left. One evening, as Rose sat on the porch with Hope sleeping in her arms, Hunter joined her, offering a cup of coffee. Hannah says you're healing well, he commented, settling into the chair beside her. Rose nodded. Your sister is a godsend. She says the same about you. Says it's nice having another woman around. Hunter sipped his coffee. The baby seems to be growing already. She is, Rose agreed, looking down at Hope's peaceful face. After a moment of hesitation, she added, You must be wondering about those men. Hunter shrugged. Figured you'd tell me if you wanted to. Rose appreciated his lack of pressure, but she owed him the truth. I was a singer at a saloon in Silverton. The owner's son took a fancy to me, made promises he never intended to keep. She swallowed hard. When I told him about the baby, he denied everything. Said I was entertaining other men. His father offered me money to leave town quietly. Hunter's jaw tightened. But you refused. I did, Rose confirmed. So they spread rumors that I was a woman of loose morals, trying to trap their precious heir. When I still wouldn't leave, they hired men to run me out of town. She looked out at the distant mountains. I've been running ever since. Hunter was quiet for a long moment. The Baldwins, he finally said. Nathan Baldwin owns the Silver Strike Saloon in Silverton. Rose stared at him, surprised. You know them? Know of them, Hunter corrected. Nathan Baldwin has a reputation for getting what he wants, one way or another. And his son Richard fancies himself quite the ladies' man. Richard Baldwin is Hope's father, Rose admitted, the name bitter on her tongue. Hunter nodded once, his expression unreadable. The Baldwins have money and influence, but they're not well liked. Too many people have been hurt by their schemes. Are you going to turn us in? Rose asked, hating the vulnerability in her voice, but needing to know. Hunter looked genuinely offended. What kind of man do you take me for? He set his coffee cup down with more force than necessary. I don't side with men who abandon their responsibilities, especially not to a child. Rose felt tears threatening. No one had defended her since this nightmare began. I'm sorry. It's just. I've learned not to trust easily. Hunter's expression softened. That's fair enough. He glanced at Hope. You can stay here as long as you need. Hannah enjoys the company, and we could use an extra pair of hands around the place when you're fully recovered. I don't want to be a burden, Rose protested. Having someone help with cooking and mending isn't a burden, Hunter replied practically. Hannah works herself too hard as it is. Before Rose could respond, a rider appeared on the horizon, approaching the homestead at a gallop. Hunter stood, hand moving instinctively to his gun. Stay here, he ordered, stepping off the porch. The rider pulled his horse to a stop in a cloud of dust. Rose recognized him as a young man named Caleb who worked for Hunter. Mr. Walsh, the rider called. Trouble in town. The Baldwin's men are asking questions about a woman and baby, offering good money for information. Hunter's face hardened. How many men? For that I saw, Caleb replied. Mean-looking bunch. They're staying at the hotel. Hunter nodded. Ride to the north pasture and tell the boys to keep their eyes open for strangers. Then get back here and stay with Hannah and Mrs. Calloway. Rose clutched Hope tighter. They found me. They're looking, Hunter corrected. Doesn't mean they'll find anything. He turned to go into the house, presumably to tell Hannah. What are you going to do? Rose called after him. Hunter paused. Going to have a word with some folks in town. Make sure no one gets loose-lipped about strangers in these parts. Fear gripped Rose's heart. The Baldwins are dangerous men. A small, cold smile touched Hunter's lips. So am I, when provoked. 2 hours later, Hunter rode out, armed and determined. Rose watched him go with a sense of dread, wondering if she'd brought destruction to these kind people who'd sheltered her. Hannah joined her on the porch. Don't you worry about my brother. He knows what he's doing. I should leave, Rose said, before I bring more trouble. Hannah snorted. And go where, with a newborn? Besides, Hunter would track you down and drag you back. He's stubborn that way. Why is he helping us? Rose asked, the question that had been nagging at her for days. He doesn't know me. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Our mother was in a situation not unlike yours. Different circumstances, but the same judgment from others. She died giving birth to Hunter, with people calling her filthy names instead of getting her help. She sighed. Our father raised us to judge people by their actions, not rumors. Rose felt a wave of understanding wash over her. I'm sorry about your mother. It was a long time ago, Hannah said. But some wounds never fully heal. I think Hunter sees in you a chance to right a wrong he couldn't fix for our mother. The explanation made sense, but Rose couldn't help feeling there was more to Hunter Walsh's interest in her plight than just old family history. Night fell with no sign of Hunter. Rose put Hope down in the cradle Hunter had built for her, then helped Hannah with evening chores. Despite Hannah's assurances, worry gnawed at her. It was nearly midnight when they heard hoofbeats approaching. Hannah grabbed a shotgun from above the door, while Rose stood protectively near Hope's cradle. It's me, Hunter's voice called before he appeared in the doorway. He looked tired but unharmed. What happened? Hannah demanded, lowering the shotgun. Hunter removed his hat and coat. Had a chat with some folks in town. Made it clear that strangers asking questions about women and babies aren't welcome around here. And the Baldwin's men? Rose asked. They'll be riding out tomorrow, Hunter said with quiet confidence. Seems they had some trouble at the saloon tonight. Lost all their money gambling, and one of them got caught cheating. A hint of satisfaction crossed his face. Sheriffs holding them till morning, then escorting them to the county line. Rose stared at him. You arranged all that? Hunter shrugged. Let's just say I called in some favors. A lot of folks around here have no love for the Baldwins or their hired guns. They'll send more men, Rose said, the brief flicker of hope fading. Probably, Hunter agreed. But we'll be ready. He sat heavily at the table, accepting the coffee Hannah poured for him. I also sent a telegram to a friend of mine, former lawman who now works for the territorial governor. Asked him to look into some of the Baldwins' business dealings. What good will that do? Rose asked. Hunter looked up at her, his blue eyes steady. Men like Nathan Baldwin usually don't get rich without cutting corners. If we can find something he's afraid of having exposed, we might be able to negotiate a more permanent solution to your situation. The idea that someone was actively strategizing on her behalf was so foreign to Rose that she didn't know how to respond. Since discovering her pregnancy, she'd been entirely alone in her fight for survival. Why? She finally asked. Why go to all this trouble for us? Hunter held her gaze. Because it's the right thing to do. After a moment, he added more softly. And because I've never seen anyone as brave as you were that day in the cabin, bringing a child into this world all alone while men with guns were at your door. Rose felt a blush creep up her cheeks. Hannah cleared her throat. Well, I'm turning in, she announced. Been a long day. After Hannah left, an awkward silence fell between Rose and Hunter. Thank you, Rose finally said. For everything. Hunter nodded once, then rose from the table. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll start making more permanent plans for your safety. As he reached the door, Rose called out, Hunter. He turned, eyebrows raised. Be careful. The Baldwins don't give up easily. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Neither do I, Mrs. Calloway. Neither do I. Over the next few weeks, a tentative routine developed at the Walsh homestead. Rose helped Hannah with household chores while caring for Hope, who grew stronger and more alert each day. Hunter and his small crew tended to the cattle and the daily operation of the ranch. To Rose's surprise, Hunter took a special interest in Hope. The first time Rose placed the baby in his large, calloused hands, his face had transformed with wonder. Now, it wasn't uncommon to find the stern cowboy sitting in the rocking chair with Hope asleep on his chest, his deep voice rumbling as he told her stories about horses and cattle drives. You're good with her, Rose commented one evening as Hunter gently bounced Hope, who was fussy with colic. Babies are easier than most folks, Hunter replied. They don't lie or pretend. If they need something, they let you know. Rose smiled. That's certainly true. Hunter studied Hope's tiny face. She has your eyes. And her father's chin, unfortunately, Rose said with a touch of bitterness. Hunter shook his head. She's all you, far as I can see. Strong and determined. The compliment warmed Rose more than it should have. She'd noticed herself becoming increasingly aware of Hunter Walsh the way sunlight caught his hair when he removed his hat, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, the gentle strength in his hands whether he was handling newborn calves or baby Hope. These feelings confused her. After Richard Baldwin's betrayal, Rose had vowed never to trust a man again. Yet here she was, finding herself drawn to the quiet cowboy who'd saved her life. One afternoon, as summer heat shimmered over the land, Rose was hanging laundry when she spotted riders approaching 3 men, moving fast toward the homestead. Heart pounding, she grabbed Hope from her basket and ran toward the house. Hannah, riders coming. Hannah emerged from the house, wiping flour from her hands. She squinted at the approaching men, then relaxed. It's just Hunter and the boys. As they drew closer, Rose could see Hunter in the lead, his expression grim. The men dismounted quickly, and Hunter strode toward the house. What's wrong? Hannah asked, immediately sensing her brother's mood. Baldwin's men are back, Hunter said tersely. 6 of them this time, asking questions all over the county. He looked at Rose. Someone in town mentioned seeing me bring a woman and baby here weeks ago. They'll be heading this way soon. Fear clutched at Rose's heart. What do we do? Hunter's jaw tightened. We were planning to move the herd to the north pasture tomorrow anyway. We'll do it now. Take you and Hope along. There's an old line shack up there where you can stay until I figure something out. I can't keep running forever, Rose said, bouncing Hope gently as the baby began to fuss. And I can't keep putting your family in danger. You're not running, Hunter replied firmly. You're buying time. My friend with the territorial governor sent word they're looking into Baldwin's business dealings. Seems there might be some irregularities with his mining claims. Hope began to cry in earnest, and Rose instinctively moved to comfort her, swaying gently and humming. Hannah, help Mrs. Calloway pack whatever she and the baby need, Hunter instructed. Light as possible. Tom, get the chuck wagon ready. We leave in an hour. Rose had never seen a cattle drive up close before. The noise and dust were overwhelming as Hunter's small crew of 4 cowboys moved the herd of about 200 cattle toward the northern pastures. Rose rode in the chuck wagon with Hope and Hannah, jolting over the rough terrain. "How far is this line shack?" Rose asked, holding Hope securely against her as the wagon bounced. "About 15 miles, Hannah replied. "It's not much, but it's solid. Hunter and I stayed there one winter when we first came to Montana." By nightfall, they'd made camp in a sheltered valley. The cattle settled for the night, and the men took turns standing watch. Hunter checked on Rose and Hope frequently, bringing extra blankets and making sure they had everything they needed. Late that night, as Rose sat by the fire nursing Hope, Hunter joined her, offering a cup of coffee. "How are you holding up?" he asked quietly. "Better than I expected," Rose admitted. "It feels good to be doing something besides hiding and waiting for them to find me." Hunter nodded, staring into the fire. "My friend with the governor sent another telegram today. They found evidence that Baldwin falsified documents to claim mining rights on land that should have gone to the local tribes by treaty." Hope finished nursing, and Rose adjusted her clothing before gently patting the baby's back. "What does that mean for us?" "It means we might have leverage," Hunter explained. "If Baldwin's afraid of losing his mines, he might be willing to leave you alone in exchange for our silence." "Blackmail?" Rose asked, surprised. Hunter's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "I prefer to think of it as negotiation." His expression grew serious. "I won't let them take Hope from you, Rose. I promise you that." It was the first time he'd used her given name, and the intimacy of it sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the cool night air. "Thank you," she whispered. Hunter reached out hesitantly, his finger gently touching Hope's tiny hand. The baby reflexively grabbed his finger, her whole hand barely able to circle it. "She's got a strong grip," he said, wonder in his voice. "Yes," Rose agreed, watching the tenderness in Hunter's weather-lined face. "She's a fighter." "Like her mother," Hunter said, his blue eyes meeting Rose's. Something passed between them in that moment, something unspoken but powerful. Then Hope squirmed, breaking the spell, and Hunter withdrew his hand. "You should get some rest," he said, rising. "We'll reach the line shack by noon tomorrow." As he walked away, Rose found herself wondering what life might have been like if Hunter Walsh, not Richard Baldwin, had been the man she'd met in Silverton. The line shack proved to be a one-room cabin built sturdily against the side of a hill, with a small corral for horses and a creek running nearby. It was simple but clean, with a stone fireplace, a table with 2 chairs, and a narrow bed. "It's not much," Hunter apologized as he carried in their supplies. "It's perfect," Rose assured him. After months of running and hiding in abandoned buildings, the small cabin seemed like luxury. Hannah helped Rose settle in while Hunter and his men got the cattle established in the northern pasture. That evening, Hannah prepared to leave with the cowboys, surprising Rose. "You're not staying?" Rose asked, dismayed at the thought of being alone. "The ranch needs tending," Hannah explained. "And it's better if I'm there if Baldwin's men come calling. I can truthfully say I don't know where you are." "Hunter's staying with you," one of the cowboys added. "Says he wants to make sure you're safe up here." Rose looked at Hunter, who was busy checking the cabin's roof for leaks. "Is that wise? Won't they be suspicious if you're both gone?" "Let me worry about that," Hunter said, climbing down from the roof. "I've told the boys to say I'm tracking mountain lions that have been after the calves. It's believable enough we lost 3 to a big cat last month." After the others left, an awkward silence fell over the cabin. Hunter busied himself chopping firewood while Rose organized their supplies and tended to Hope. As darkness fell, the small space seemed to shrink around them. "I can sleep outside," Hunter offered, noting Rose's discomfort. "Don't be ridiculous," Rose replied. "It's too cold at night up here." She hesitated. "The floor by the fire will be fine for me and Hope." Hunter frowned. "You'll take the bed." No arguments. Rose wanted to protest, but saw the stubborn set of his jaw and realized it would be futile. That night, as she lay in the narrow bed with Hope nestled beside her, she was acutely aware of Hunter's large frame stretched out on a bedroll near the fire, his breathing deep and even. Days passed in the quiet routine of the line shack. Hunter would leave early each morning to check the cattle, returning by midday. Rose kept the cabin tidy and cared for Hope, who was growing and changing daily. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire, talking of small things. Hunter's childhood in Kansas, Rose's dreams of being a real singer someday, not just a saloon entertainer. One evening, as rain pattered on the roof, Hunter asked the question Rose had been dreading. What will you do when this is over? When the Baldwins are no longer a threat? Rose looked down at Hope, sleeping peacefully in the cradle Hunter had fashioned from a wooden crate. I don't know. I can't go back to Silverton. No, Hunter agreed. But there are other towns. Other places you could start fresh. The thought of leaving the safety she'd found with Hunter and Hannah filled Rose with unexpected sadness. I suppose I could try Denver. My cousin lives there. She might help us get established. Hunter nodded, his expression unreadable. Denver's a good city. Opportunities for a woman with your talents. My talents, Rose echoed. Your singing, Hunter clarified. Hannah mentioned you have a beautiful voice. Rose felt her cheeks warm. She had sung lullabies to Hope, not realizing Hunter had overheard. It's just something I do. Nothing special. I disagree, Hunter said quietly. Your voice is extraordinary. The compliment hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Rose looked up to find Hunter watching her, his blue eyes intense in the firelight. Would you sing something now? He asked. Flustered, Rose shook her head. I don't know any proper songs. Just saloon tunes and lullabies. I'm not particular, Hunter said with a small smile. To her own surprise, Rose began to sing a ballad about a prairie girl waiting for her love to return from the war. It was a song her mother had taught her, before consumption had taken her when Rose was just 12. When she finished, the cabin was silent except for the crackling fire and the rain outside. Hunter stared at her, something like awe in his expression. That was beautiful, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Thank you, Rose whispered, suddenly shy under his gaze. Hunter cleared his throat, standing abruptly. I should check on the horses before turning in. He grabbed his coat and stepped outside into the rain, leaving Rose confused by his sudden departure. She didn't understand that her singing had stirred feelings in Hunter that he'd been trying to suppress since the day he'd found her in that abandoned cabin. The next morning, a rider approached the line shack just as Hunter was preparing to check the herd. He grabbed his rifle, motioning for Rose to stay inside with Hope. It's Caleb, Hunter said with relief as he recognized the young cowboy. Something must have happened. Rose watched from the window as Hunter met the rider. Their conversation was intense, with Caleb gesturing urgently and Hunter's posture growing increasingly tense. Finally, Hunter nodded and Caleb rode off again. When Hunter returned to the cabin, his expression was grim. Baldwin's men searched the ranch yesterday, he announced. Hannah's fine, he added quickly, seeing Rose's alarm. She told them exactly what we planned, that I was tracking mountain lions and you'd left weeks ago, heading for Oregon. Did they believe her? Rose asked. Hunter's mouth tightened. Hard to say. They didn't find anything to contradict her story, but they're still in the area. Caleb says they've been asking about this line shack. Rose clutched Hope tighter. They know we're here. They suspect, maybe. This cabin isn't on any maps, but locals know about it. Hunter ran a hand through his hair. We need to move you somewhere safer. Where? Rose asked, desperation creeping into her voice. I can't keep running, Hunter. Hope deserves stability, a real home. Hunter was quiet for a long moment. There's an old mining claim in the mountains east of here. It belonged to Hannah's husband before he died. Cabin's still there, and it's so remote even most locals don't know about it. How long can we keep hiding? Rose asked, tears of frustration threatening. This isn't a life for Hope. Hunter approached her slowly, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. I received a telegram last week. The territorial governor is preparing to file charges against Baldwin for land fraud. Once that happens, he'll have bigger problems than hunting you down. Hope began to fuss, and Rose bounced her gently, trying to calm both the baby and herself. How long? A few more weeks, maybe a month, Hunter replied. Can you hold on that long? Rose looked down at Hope, then back at Hunter. Do I have a choice? Hunter's hands tightened slightly on her shoulders. There's always a choice, Rose. He hesitated, then added, You could marry me. Rose stared at him, certain she'd misheard. What? Hunter stepped back, looking almost as surprised by his words as she was. But he continued, his voice growing more confident. If you were my wife, Baldwin would have no claim on Hope. My name would protect you both legally. You can't be serious, Rose whispered. I am, Hunter insisted. It would be a marriage of convenience, of course, to protect you and Hope. Once the Baldwin situation is resolved, you could still go to Denver if you wanted. The offer stunned Rose. Hunter, I can't let you sacrifice your future for us. It's not a sacrifice, Hunter said firmly. It's a solution. Rose shook her head, unable to process what he was proposing. This is madness. You barely know me. I know enough, Hunter replied quietly. I know you're brave and strong. I know you love your daughter fiercely. I know you didn't deserve what happened to you in Silverton. Hope's cries grew louder, and Rose focused on soothing her, grateful for the distraction from Hunter's unexpected proposal. Think about it, Hunter said, reaching for his hat. I need to check the herd. I'll be back by sundown. After he left, Rose sat in the rocking chair, nursing Hope and trying to make sense of Hunter's offer. Marriage of convenience, he'd called it. But the look in his eyes had suggested something more. Could she marry a man she barely knew, even to protect Hope? And what about her own feelings? In the weeks since Hunter had rescued them, Rose had grown to admire and respect him. His kindness toward Hope touched her deeply. And yes, there was an attraction she couldn't deny, a flutter in her chest whenever he was near. But marriage? After Richard's betrayal, could she trust any man again? By the time Hunter returned that evening, Rose had made her decision. She waited until after they'd eaten supper and Hope was asleep in her makeshift cradle. I've been thinking about your proposal, she began, nervously twisting a loose thread on her sleeve. Hunter set down his coffee cup, giving her his full attention. And, I'm grateful for the offer, Rose said carefully. But I can't accept. Hunter's expression didn't change, but she noticed his knuckles whitening around the coffee cup. May I ask why? Rose took a deep breath. Because it wouldn't be fair to you. You deserve a wife who comes to you without complications, without another man's child, without bounty hunters on her trail. Shouldn't that be my decision? Hunter asked quietly. You're offering out of kindness, because you want to help, Rose continued. But marriage should be more than that. It should be love. Hunter interrupted. Is that what you had with Baldwin? The question stung. I thought it was. I was wrong. Hunter set his cup down and leaned forward. Rose, I'm not Richard Baldwin. I don't make promises I don't intend to keep. I know that, Rose said softly. You're nothing like him. You're a good man, Hunter Walsh. That's why I can't let you tie yourself to us out of pity or obligation. Hunter's jaw tightened. Is that what you think this is? Pity. Before Rose could respond, Hope began to cry. She rose quickly to tend to the baby, grateful for the interruption. By the time Hope settled again, Hunter had gone outside, presumably to check on the horses one last time before bed. The next morning, Hunter was distant, focused on preparations to move Rose and Hope to the mining cabin. Rose sensed his hurt at her rejection, but didn't know how to bridge the gap that had formed between them. They were nearly ready to leave when the sound of approaching horses froze them both. Hunter grabbed his rifle, peering out the window. For riders, he said grimly. Baldwin's men, from the look of them. Rose clutched Hope to her chest, terror seizing her heart. How did they find us? Doesn't matter now, Hunter replied, checking his ammunition. There's a root cellar under the floorboards in the corner. Take Hope and hide there. What about you? Rose asked, already moving toward the corner he'd indicated. Hunter's expression was resolute. I'll handle them. There are 4 of them, Hunter. Rose protested. And only one way into this cabin, Hunter replied calmly. The odds aren't as bad as they seem. Rose knew arguing was futile. She quickly lowered herself and Hope into the cramped root cellar as Hunter lifted the trapdoor. His hand briefly touched her cheek. Whatever happens, stay quiet, he instructed. If things go wrong, wait until dark, then take the bay mare. She knows the way back to the ranch. Rose caught his hand. Be careful. Hunter's eyes softened for just a moment. Always am. Then the trapdoor closed, plunging Rose and Hope into darkness. From below, Rose could hear the muffled sounds of men's voices, then Hunter's deeper tones responding. The conversation seemed civil at first, but soon rose in volume. Rose pressed Hope close, praying the baby wouldn't cry. Suddenly, gunshots exploded above them. Hope startled, but, miraculously, didn't cry out. Rose listened in terror as more shots were fired, followed by the sound of breaking glass and a heavy thud. Then silence. Rose waited, heart pounding, straining to hear any movement above. After what seemed like an eternity, Footsteps crossed the floor, and the trapdoor lifted. Hunter stood there, a bloody gash across his forehead, but otherwise intact. "It's over," he said simply. Rose climbed out, clutching Hope tightly. The cabin was a disaster: broken furniture, shattered window, and a smear of blood across one wall. But there were no bodies. "Are they?" Rose couldn't finish the question. "Dead?" "No," Hunter replied, wiping blood from his face with his sleeve. "But they won't be following us anytime soon. I winged 2 of them, and they all rode off." Relief flooded Rose, followed quickly by fear. "They'll be back with more men. Which is why we need to leave now," Hunter agreed. "The mining cabin is our best option." It took them less than 15 minutes to gather their essentials and saddle the horses. Hunter insisted Rose ride with Hope while he led her horse, despite his own injury. The journey to the mining cabin took most of the day, following game trails and creek beds to avoid leaving an obvious trail. Rose marveled at Hunter's woodcraft. He moved through the wilderness with the confidence of someone who knew every tree and rock. By late afternoon, they reached a narrow canyon. Following a barely visible path, they emerged into a small clearing where a sturdy log cabin stood beside a rushing stream. The cabin was smaller than the lined shack, but solidly built, with a stone chimney and small porch. "This is it," Hunter said, helping Rose dismount. "No one will find us here without a guide." Rose surveyed their new hiding place. "How long can we stay?" "As long as necessary," Hunter replied, unlashing their supplies from the pack horse. "There's game in these hills, water from the stream. We could last months if needed." But it wouldn't be months, as it turned out. Just 3 days later, a lone rider approached the cabin. Caleb again, this time with news that changed everything. "The territorial governor's men arrested Nathan Baldwin yesterday," he reported excitedly. "Fraud, bribery of government officials, illegal seizure of treaty lands. They say he'll be in prison for years." "And his son?" Rose asked, hope rising in her chest. "Fled to Colorado, from what I heard," Caleb replied. "But he won't be back. The family's ruined. The mines are being seized by the territory." Hunter nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "And the men who were looking for Mrs. Calloway?" "Gone," Caleb confirmed. "No one to pay them anymore." That night, after Caleb had left to return to the ranch with the news that Hunter and Rose were safe, they sat on the small porch watching the stars emerge. "It's over," Rose said wonderingly. "We're free." Hunter nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You can go to Denver now, if that's still what you want." Rose looked down at Hope, sleeping peacefully in her arms. The baby had grown so much in the weeks since her birth, her features more defined, her personality emerging. And in that time, Rose had changed too. "I'm not sure what I want anymore," she admitted. "A month ago, all I could think about was running, surviving. Now, Hunter prompted when she fell silent. Rose met his gaze. "Now I find myself thinking about staying." Hunter's expression remained carefully neutral. "Staying where?" "Here, Montana." Rose swallowed hard, gathering her courage. "With you, if the offer still stands." Hunter turned fully toward her. "Which offer is that?" "Marriage," Rose said softly, "though not just for convenience anymore." Hunter studied her face, as if searching for any sign of doubt. "What changed your mind?" "You did," Rose replied honestly. "The way you've protected us, cared for us. The way you look at Hope, like she's the most precious thing you've ever seen." She paused. "The way you sometimes look at me when you think I don't notice." Hunter's eyes widened slightly. "And how is that? Like I'm someone worth fighting for," Rose whispered. "No one's ever looked at me that way before." Hunter reached out slowly, his hand cupping her cheek. "Because no one ever saw the real you before." "I did, from that first day in the cabin when you were protecting your newborn with nothing but courage and determination." His voice grew husky. "You called it pity or obligation, but it was never that, Rose. It was admiration, respect." He paused. "And yes, something more." "Love?" Rose asked, echoing their previous conversation. Hunter's thumb gently traced her cheekbone. "I think it could be, given time." Rose leaned into his touch. "I think so too." Hunter glanced down at Hope. "Are you sure this is what you want? What's best for both of you?" "A home with a good man who respects me and loves my daughter?" Rose smiled. "Yes, I'm sure that's what's best for us." Hunter's smile transformed his weathered face, making him look younger, unburdened. "Then my offer still stands," Rose Calloway. Will you marry me? Not for convenience, but because we both believe we could build something real together? Yes, Rose whispered. I will. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, the beginning of something new and fragile and full of possibility. When they parted, Hunter rested his forehead against hers. We should get married as soon as possible, he said pragmatically, to make everything legal for Hope's sake. Rose nodded. But I want Hannah there. And I'd like a proper dress, if possible. Hunter chuckled. I think we can manage that. The preacher comes through town every third Sunday. That gives us just over a week. They were married 9 days later in the small church in town, with Hannah beaming beside them and baby Hope, dressed in a christening gown Hannah had saved from her own childhood, sleeping peacefully through the ceremony. Rose wore a simple blue dress that Hannah had helped her make, with wildflowers in her hair instead of a veil. Hunter, freshly shaved and wearing a new shirt, looked at her as though she were the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. After the brief ceremony, the preacher asked about the baby. Hunter didn't hesitate. Hope Walsh, he said firmly. Our daughter. The preacher raised an eyebrow but made no comment as he recorded the information in his registry. Later, at the small celebration Hannah had arranged at the ranch, Rose found a moment alone with her new husband. You didn't have to do that, she said. With the registry. Hunter's expression was serious. Yes, I did. Hope is my daughter now in every way that matters. I want her to grow up never doubting that she belongs, that she's wanted. Tears pricked Rose's eyes. Thank you. Hunter drew her into his arms. No more thanks between us, Rose. We're family now. And as he kissed her, Rose knew she'd found what she'd been searching for all along, not just safety or security, but a home, a place where she and Hope were accepted completely, without judgment or conditions. 1 year later, on Hope's first birthday, Rose sat on the porch of their expanded ranch house, watching Hunter teaching the little girl to pet a gentle old mare. Hope's delighted giggles floated across the yard as the horse nuzzled her tiny hand. Hannah joined Rose on the porch, handing her a cup of coffee. He's smitten with that child, she commented with a smile. They both are, Rose agreed, her hand unconsciously moving to her swelling belly. In just a few months, Hope would have a little brother or sister. Did you ever imagine your life would turn out this way? Hannah asked. When you were running, I mean. Rose shook her head. Never. I was just trying to survive from one day to the next. They watched as Hunter lifted Hope onto the mare's back, holding her securely while leading the horse in a small circle. The little girl's face was alight with joy, her tiny hands clutching the horse's mane. You know, Hannah said thoughtfully, people still talk about you in town. Rose tensed slightly. Though the scandal of her arrival had died down, she knew some people still whispered about her past. What do they say? Hannah smiled. They say you must be the bravest woman in the territory, giving birth alone in that cabin with bounty hunters at the door. She patted Rose's hand. My brother wasn't the only one who thought you did it braver than most. Rose watched as Hunter swung Hope down from the horse and into his arms, spinning her around until she shrieked with laughter. His eyes met Rose's across the yard, filled with a love that still took her breath away. I wasn't brave, Rose said softly. I was just a mother protecting her child. That's the bravest thing of all, Hannah replied. Hunter carried Hope toward the porch, the little girl chattering excitedly about the horse. As they approached, Hope reached for Rose, who took her daughter into her arms. Mama, Hope exclaimed, patting Rose's face with her small hands. Did you like the horse, sweetheart? Rose asked, smoothing Hope's dark curls. Horsey big, Hope declared importantly. Hunter sat beside Rose, his arm draping naturally around her shoulders. She's a natural rider, going to need her own pony before long. Let's not rush things, Rose laughed. She's only just learned to walk. Hunter's hand moved to rest gently on Rose's rounded belly. Think this one will be a rider too? With you as a father? Undoubtedly, Rose replied, covering his hand with hers. As the sun began to set over the Montana hills, casting golden light across their land, Rose thought about the journey that had brought her here from a frightened, desperate young woman giving birth alone in an abandoned cabin to this moment of perfect contentment, surrounded by family and love. She had been called filthy once, judged and cast out by people who thought themselves better than her. But Hunter Walsh had seen something different. He had seen her courage, her strength, her worth. And in doing so, he had given her and hope not just a name or protection, but a future filled with possibility. Rose leaned her head against her husband's shoulder, their daughter nestled between them, and their second child growing beneath her heart. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together, a family forged not by blood or circumstance, but by choice and love. And that, Rose knew, was the bravest thing of all.